is. Do do do. Okay, how about now? All right, I think that's working now. All right, cool. So, welcome to the stream. Tonight we're going to be doing pan chicken nachos. And to start this off, I'm going to go ahead and preheat the oven up to 425. Just make sure that that's nice and warm for us here in a couple moments. Because I was looking over the suggested recipe. I'm not really following it exactly, but it's a good place to start. It's got a good list of ingredients, and it'll kind of work it out to where I want it to be. So I'm sort of basing it off of this. It should be linked in the description, so check it out. And so we've got our ingredients here. We've got some black beans. I'm not doing olives. I don't have any, and I'm not a huge fan of olives, but um, yeah, I've got the cheddar, and I'm going to be using some pepper jack to add a little bit of extra spice to it. I've got that in the fridge. I'll be pulling out in a second. And then I've got a reasonably small, maybe more of a medium Roma tomato. I've got a bunch of green onions. I've got a jalapeno here, which is not small, but I think it'll be pretty good. And then I'm going to be using up some of the roasted chicken that we did on Sunday because this is a weeknight meal, and I try to keep those kind of fast and use up leftovers and stuff that I've had before. And I still had some of that left. Um, I actually experimented with some other stuff on Monday night and then last night, so we didn't actually eat all of the stuff, all of the roast chicken from before. So that should be pretty good. I've also got my favorite cooking salsa here, which is the Trader Joe's chunky salsa. It cooks well. It's got a good balance of flavors, and I just like it. And then of course we've got a bag of tortilla chips we'll be pulling down when we get to that point. All right, so I'm going to set all of this stuff aside for a moment because what we're going to start with is we're going to get the chicken into the salsa. Um, Once we have that mixed up, then we'll be able to set that aside and shred the cheese. Um, and that'll kind of be our base. And then while that cooks, we can cut up the rest of the stuff. So that's what we are going to do. I'm going to go ahead and grab the chicken here. And for this, I think I'm going to be I've got plenty of chicken breast left. So we'll be starting with that. I go ahead and grab a bowl to put this stuff in. And we're going to go with a fairly large bowl since we're going to be getting about a pound. And just because I am curious, it doesn't need to be precise, but because I'm curious, I'm going to go ahead and grab my scale. I'm just going to weigh out about a pound or so and see if I need to grab any more from the refrigerator. I'll probably need to grab some more. That's only half a pound. Yeah, all right, I'll grab a little bit more. Fortunately, I do actually have more. All right, we'll go with just this drumstick there, and that should put us over. Yeah, that puts us over, but once I pull it off the bone, that should really put it back to where we need it to be. And I'll use the rest of this. I think I'm going to make some soup with it. I'm not entirely certain. Haven't figured that bit out yet fully. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull this apart. I know there are more efficient ways of shredding, but this is a reasonably fast way, and it lets me kind of get stuff to the sizes that I would like, which is, a nice chewable size where I don't have anything that's too big. And it lets me kind of judge that very nicely. So that's what we're going to be doing. And, I could pull out something fancy, and I'm sure I could do something fancy with this, but, it's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, and at this point in a week, it's just nice to kind of take it slow and focus on something that's not that difficult for a few minutes. So we'll just get our hands messy and pull this stuff apart. It actually pulls apart quite easily. The roasting that we did on Sunday, and if you haven't checked out that stream, I encourage you to do so. But that roasting really gave this a nice texture. And it just kind of, it's not quite falls apart like you get in the Instant Pot, but it's pretty close. Let's see if we can get this stuff off the drumstick here. I might need to, no, all right, I was thinking I might need to cut some of this apart, but I don't think I will. That bit's not shredding. I think it's just a bunch of skin there. I will be perfectly honest, usually when I do this, it is after it's been in the Instant Pot, and I just use a pair of forks. But this isn't quite that tender to the point where it's just going to fall straight off. So we're just going to do it with our hands. This does mean we're going to have a nice blend of meats. So we'll have both the light meat and the dark meat. And that will add an extra dimension of flavor to our finished nachos. Which is, of course, what you always want. I'm definitely going to keep this bone, these bones here, because these are going to be fantastic in a soup. If I toss this in, it adds a whole bunch of extra flavor. Yep, all right, that should be pretty good. I'm not too worried about getting everything off. Like I said, anything that I don't use now, I will use in my soup. Then we'll get the half cup or so of my cooking salsa. We'll get that in there, and we're going to toss it together with the chicken in order to give an extra, in order to add that extra flavor in. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. Most of these are nice, biteable size. We don't want it to be too big. We don't want it to be too small. We want it to be in the Goldilocks zone of sizes. So I'm just going through and making sure that everything is in that Goldilocks zone. I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. All right. Just gonna rinse off my hands because a little bit of that olive oil that we coated that roast chicken in. Still a little bit there, so it's still a little oily. And I can't exactly open a jar of salsa with slippery hands. I may not be able to open it at all. Yeah, my hands are now damp. So first they were sliding because it was a little oily. Now it's just because they're damp, but this is why I always keep a jar wrench around. So I never have to worry about not being able to open a jar. Alrighty. And I know this is a couple cups. I think it's 2 cups, cup and a half. So we're going to try putting in about a third or so. That might be a little closer to half. But that should be pretty good. It's got that, like I said before, it's got that nice balance of flavors. And I'll just keep that there in case that's not quite enough. But let's see here. Whoops. This is cooked chicken, so I'm not too concerned about cross-contamination. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. All right. So, we've got our chicken, got it coated. I think now it's time for the cheese. So I'm going to go ahead, move the chicken away, and if I can pick it up, I'll move the scale away as well. I'm just going to set the chicken away aside off camera, and we're going to go ahead and grab, so like I said, I've got some sharp cheddar, and I've also got some pepper jack that I'm going to be using for this. So I'll go ahead and grab those. Let's see, pepper jack and sharp cheddar. I'll probably need to grab some more sharp cheddar. I've been going through this stuff as I make various recipes. Grab my trusty box grater here. We're going to start off with the pepper jack, because that's what I have the least of. It's time for me to get some more. We'll finish this off tonight. This will add just that nice little bit of spice. I know that we'll get plenty of spice from other sources, but at least we'll have spice from this source too. This will kind of just get in with the cheese and infuse it with that little bit of pepper. Nachos are one of those things that, like, it's pretty easy to do just part of. And so usually if I'm not specifically in the mood for full-on loaded nachos, I will do just partial nachos, where, you just grab a couple of the ingredients. I mean, you always have to have the cheese, you always have to have the chips, but apart from that, I mean, you can do a tomato, you can not do a tomato, you can do pinto beans, you can do black beans. We're doing black beans tonight. I think that they work a little bit better with nachos. I'm not usually a huge fan of black beans, but they do seem to work pretty well flavor-wise, and it really is all about the flavor. It's finding what works best for you, and I mean that's all cooking. It's finding what works best for you, and then figuring out how to get that. Alrighty, let me grab another bowl in order to put the cheese in, because we're going to need to be able to weigh it. And we're looking for, 12 ounces, which is about 3 cups, approximately. Plus or minus a little. And that is, this will be just about 8 ounces. It's 7.5 right now, and I'm assuming this is probably about another half ounce. That was close, 7.8, teetering on the edge of 7.9. So we'll finish off with this block, and then I'll go grab another block of the stuff. Lately, with the various pandemic shortages, I've started buying, just to make sure I've got it on hand for when I need it. I'll buy a couple at a time, and then I'll usually reorder when I start getting low. So my total consumption hasn't really changed, but my buying habits favor buying in bulk when things are available. Which probably contributes to shortages, honestly. But hey, that's, it's part of economics. Everyone's seeking to optimize for themselves. Gotta get my cheese. This actually might be just about enough. Well, look at that. That's 11.5 right now. When I add this in, it'll probably be like 11.8, and I would count that as being good. Yep, all right, that's 11.8. So there we go. That's enough. Here, I can actually probably get that to 11.9. There's a little bit left down here. Yep, 11.9. That's close enough to 12 ounces for me. He says, knocking just a little bit more off the cheese grater. Okay. So we've got our approximately 12 ounces of cheese here. And we're going to go ahead and see, we've got our oven that's preheated. I'm going to put the scale up over here because I don't need it for the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a baking pan, a sheet pan, and we're going to line that with some foil. Because otherwise this is going to be really, really messy. It'll probably be messy anyway, but at least we can prevent some of that messiness from getting all over the place. Running pretty low on foil. Down to the end of this roll. Have to make sure that gets added to my shopping list. All right, so we've got our foil. What we're going to do, let's get that out of the way. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our tortilla chips. Got those here. I'm using the on the border ones because it's what I have available, and they tend to hold up a bit better with the salsa that I tend to use when I'm, eating chips and salsa. So we're going to take about that much. I don't know, it's approximately 8 ounces or so. It's half of our layer. Sorry, not 8 ounces. We're looking for 6 ounces. We're just trying to get a good first layer here, because we're going to be building on top of this. This is our foundation. All right, so we're going to probably put, I think, our chicken on next. Yeah, we'll do chicken and then we'll do some cheese on top of that. So we're going to just take about half of our chicken here. We're just going to sprinkle it all over. We will be putting more on top. There. I think maybe just a little bit more over here. Try and make sure it's kind of even, so we kind of get it everywhere. Let's break up this clump here. Put that there, that there. This is one of those meals you probably wouldn't want to have every night, but every now and then it's a treat halfway through the week. It's a good option. All right, so we've got our chicken. We're just going to take a handful as I'm making sure that I get that pepper jack kind of mixed in, because I don't want it all clumped in one spot. So I'm just mixing up the cheese here. That should be pretty good. And we're just going to take a nice handful of this and sprinkle it around. Try not to drop too much on the floor. Those are instructions that I tend to have trouble with. Dropping stuff on the floor is basically just it's a method of cooking. It's a method of prep. You'll always know where it is. You'll never use it, but you'll know where it is. All right, now we're going to go ahead and grab some more chips. Yeah, it really feels like I was supposed to have black beans in there at some point. Can't remember if they go in on the first layer or not. What does this recommend? This recommends on top, so very top. All right, we're going to go ahead and take the rest of our chips here and just kind of lay them out. Get all those little bits that fall to the bottom. They'll kind of act as filler. That's not actually a requirement by any means. I just probably should have taken big handfuls out, but I didn't. And now I've got all those little bits in there, and they'll probably burn. Oh well. All right, we're going to take the rest of our chicken. We're just going to kind of spread that out on top. And by now, your oven should be preheated. Mine finished preheating a minute ago. Not really sure why the green onions have decided to fall over now. Maybe they're just tired of being ignored. Who knows? Alright, so that's our chicken. Wash off my hand quickly. We're going to move the green onions that are trying to get in on the action. We're going to take the rest of our cheese. We're going to sprinkle this around pretty thickly. We do want to make sure that it's going to kind of melt and run all over everything. And get in all those delicious, delicious cracks. Kind of glue everything together in the most delicious way possible. Yeah, I think this will be pretty good. Getting hungry already. Alright, that should be pretty solid there. Sort of thinking that I should keep this in mind the next time, once the lockdowns are over and I can get together with friends again. This looks like it's going to be pretty well sized for that sort of gathering. I'm going to get these black beans open. They've switched to all these pop-top lids, and I have the worst luck with pop-top lids. I just cannot get them open. I know they're supposed to make things, easier, but then I've got to find something to wedge underneath it because it's always, so flush against the top of the can that you can't get your finger in there. And then in this case, I'm also going to be draining these, which you'll have to take my word for because I am doing it off camera. And I'm going to dump some of the black beans out. It's totally on purpose and not at all because it's just seems to be what happens whenever I start working with black beans. Figure out where the heck I put my colander. I've got a sieve, that'll do. Sieve, colander, what's the difference apart from the size of the holes? Nothing, I tell you, nothing at all. Alright, yeah, these are rinsing out pretty well now, despite being in a sieve. This is what you should do when you need to go to sea. You go to sea in a sieve. Yes, a sieve they went to sea, they did. In a sieve they went to sea. And we're just going to sprinkle this all over. think that's looking pretty solid to me. Let's see, am I forgetting anything? I don't think I am. All right, so I'm gonna pop this in the oven. Oof, that's actually pretty heavy. It's a couple pounds of pure deliciousness. All right, so I popped that in the oven, and I'm gonna set a timer here for about, oh, I don't know. It recommends about 8 minutes. We'll check on it after, I don't know, say 6? 6 minutes sound like a good idea? Let me get my timer running, which is here somewhere. It's always in the spot that you can't find it, right? I swear, just there it is. Try and make sure I've got the timer up so that I can see it on screen. Alrighty. Okay, so we've got our 6-minute timer running. I'm gonna pick this up before I step on it. And we're gonna start working on slicing up some of our vegetables. So I've already washed everything. This is probably the most prepared I've been for a stream in terms of, stuff that I prepped in advance. So we've got our knife here. Don't do what I did and let your hand slide down to the blade. No damage, but still not good practice. And we're just going to cut off the ends here. For these that are looking a little bit tired, I need to get some more of these this week. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I went through and I already removed the most tired ends before everything started. And I'm just gonna start slicing this up pretty thin. The goal here is something that we can sprinkle on top to add a little bit of flavor. I think that this will definitely do that. All right. So those are going to be our green onions. Got enough there to flavor the whole lot. I'm going to grab a little bowl for that. And my pastry knife. Or bench cutter or bench scraper or whatever it's called. I don't know, I've seen it named a couple of different ways. Alright, so we've got that, and I'll set this aside out of the way. I really desperately need more counter space. But that is easier said than done. It turns out you can't just say, I need more counter space and it will show up. You have to actually do something that, would cause that counter space to suddenly appear. That is very definitely easier said than done. I can't tell if my computer is lagging or if the stream is. Or both. I mean, if my computer's lagging, the stream's probably lagging too. I think it's probably just my computer because I'm technically remoting into a different computer. So, yeah. All right, so it's suggesting that we thinly slice the jalapeno, probably prevent the anyone from biting into too much jalapeno at once, because frankly that level of awesomeness is just too much for mere mortals. So we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to take a little bit of special care here to slice this fairly thinly. Not paper thin, but pretty thin. And when slicing through, peppers or tomatoes or anything really, what you want to do is you want the knife to kind of glide. So you want to push, and you're not pushing it straight down. You're not guillotine. You want it to glide. You want it to kind of slide along, and that'll cause whatever it is that you're cutting in order to cut better without being crushed. It'll slice instead of crushing. You also want to make sure you're doing that for anything like basil or any sort of herb. You want to slice, you don't want to chop, because chopping is going to crush it, and slicing it is going to result in deliciousness. We're going to set the jalapeno aside there. I'm going to thoroughly wash my hands lest I accidentally touch my eyes or something at some point, because that would not be a good day. It would be a very bad day. I wear contacts, and I'm sort of assuming that the oils from the pepper might get in there and just like get stuck, which really doesn't sound like fun to me. I'm actually going to also grab a paper towel and quickly wipe down my cutting surface here, just to kind of make sure that nothing happens. And I am being careful of my knife before anyone says anything. I know where it is, I know where my hand is going, and I've got my hands up on the paper towel, so even if I wasn't paying attention, it would hit the paper towel, not my fingers. Because that is a nice, very sharp knife, and yeah, that wouldn't be fun at all. All right, I'm checking on the nachos. I think we got a little bit longer. Oh, hey, the timer did go off. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna set this for another, I'm gonna say another 2 minutes, and I'll check that again in about 2 minutes. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just, let's see, I think this suggests cubing, or chopping up as opposed to slicing. Yeah, just chop it. I'm not following it exactly, but if someone's written down like what worked best for them, I'll use that. All right. So we're just kind of going with, and again, I'm pushing forward as I slice down to prevent crushing. Turns out that actually tomatoes are basically like a gel, and so if you crush, it squeezes all of the liquid out. And so the only way to actually do it properly is to slice with a little bit of motion. And when you do that, it doesn't get juices out everywhere. Well, see, I caught that one and it was slicing down. See, if I slice straight down, like it'll work. It's a sharp knife, but it's not as clean. You can make anything cut anything, with enough pressure. Well, okay, you probably couldn't make a wet noodle crush anything, or chop anything, but um, most things that aren't going to deform incredibly on contact, and I'm sure there's probably some way you can make a wet noodle cut something. Maybe if you offer it to somebody who needs a wet noodle in exchange for them cutting something up. Like that way, you could use a wet noodle to cut something up that way, right? That's how that works. Alrighty. So we've got that. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit here. I'm going to move the tomato off to another bowl because I do like my bowls. This is why I go through so many dishes so quickly. Do that there. Put the knife away. And let's see, is there anything I am forgetting? Well, apart from putting this away. Oh, sour cream. I forgot about sour cream. Luckily, I'm not doing anything special for sour cream. I've just got the store-bought stuff. I will make my own eventually, but today is not that day. I kind of just clean this up here. Looks like we are at time for the timer. Just gonna rinse off my cutting board. Yeah, if you clean up your workspace as you go along, you'll never have to clean up at the end. Doesn't reduce the total amount of work that you do, but it does reduce the amount of time it feels like it takes. Because it feels like I'm doing all of this when I don't need to do anything else, despite the fact that I very definitely do need to check on those nachos. Alrighty. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my oven mitts and grab this very hot and surprisingly heavy tray of nachos. I'm going to bring that right over here. Oof, a little bit of a sizzle there. I probably should have put something underneath it. The bamboo's probably fine, but I always worry a little bit about the glue that's underneath there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this off briefly. Balance it precariously. Drop a couple hot pads. And slide this back on. Alright, now I don't have to worry about that little bit of glue. And I am going to tell you that that looks, man, that looks pretty great. Just right there. But we're going to do this properly. I get some sour cream. Yeah. Getting advertised to as I open up the sour cream for another product. Alrighty. Got our sour cream here. Make sure that's just a little bit light and fluffy, and I'm not. There we go. Now we're just going to put a couple of these dollops down. Try to get all the different corners. Alrighty. So I think that's good for the sour cream. Let's try putting some of this wonderful green onion on there. Ooh, I like the green against all the other colors. Makes a nice contrast. Just kind of make sure this is sprinkled all over. This is looking really good and it smells amazing. One day we'll have the technology to pipe smells into everyone's homes. And it will promptly be hacked by some shadowy group that decides to make all of everyone's houses smell terrible. And then someone will put security controls around it and I would be able to share the scent of this, but that has not yet happened. So you must be satisfied with me just telling you that this thing that I made smells amazing. and you will have to watch in envy. Or you may have, been making your own, at which point you could be like, yes, Ryan, that does indeed smell amazing. And all of those poor people out there that have not had this do not know, or who do not have this currently sitting in their homes, do not know what it actually smells like and cannot properly appreciate the true majesty of this moment. I'm sure there's somebody out there who's thinking that. Just gonna make sure we've got a nice bunch of jalapeno over on this. But, in a way that people can avoid it if they don't want any. Well, I think of the two people that are going to be eating this. So I'm not exactly serving a big crowd. I think we both enjoy spice. So I'm thinking that looks pretty great. I'm going to wash my hands again because, again, jalapenos are not what I want to have in my eyes or anything like that. And washing your hands. I should just remember to put some gloves in here or something because, it's just one of those things that I ought to do, but I never quite seem to get around to. All right, this is done. That's how you make weeknight nachos, and I think that the only thing left to do now is to sample it. So I'm gonna just grab this one over here. Oh, chicken fell off. Come on, get it. Okay, fine, whatever. This one's still got a piece of chicken on it. It's okay. Boy, can I get more awkward, handling two pieces of corn? I don't think so. All right, we're just gonna kind of get that in here. Still a little bit floppy, and we're gonna just try this. Mm. Yeah, that's really good. All right, I am going to go off and attempt to not eat all of this at once. But thank you for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As I'm doing this on YouTube, I think I'm contractually obligated to remind you to like, subscribe, share. But if you don't, I won't tell anyone. All right, so thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you next time. Man, this is good.